Good afternoon. Come to that time on Tuesday afternoon to leave our busy daily life for a few moments and connect with our inherent stillness, quietness, emptiness, all the things that are not so important in living a daily life, but without them, we might be finding out that daily life does not mean as much. This is where it all springs from. And if we lose track of that, we might get a little lost and a little confused. So let's leave the confusion and lostness behind for a few minutes. Before we started, we were talking a little bit about comfortable positions to be in, to do these kind of exercises. It's important, I believe, to be sitting so that your hips are higher than your knees. Because as my chiropractor friend here, Don, would say, that's going to create a little arch in the lower back and have your spine be a little straighter and make the upper body, when you're comfortable, self-supporting. We usually, I was describing to a friend the other day, when I went to, when I was from where I was living and where I learned these exercises. When I went to my first meeting, I walked into a room with maybe 16, 17 people. Some of whom sitting on chairs, some of whom were on cushions. And I remember my posture when I walked into that room and I sat in a chair, and it was like someone had took a coat and threw it in the chair, and it was just kind of slumped there. It was a picture I have of myself. There were some people in that room who were in their mid-70s at the time. These meetings went on for an hour and a half, and they sat on these cushions absolutely comfortably with no support on their back for an hour and a half, and no one ever made a sound. It allows everything to flow freely through the body. We're working with sensing and energy here. And when you're slumped, there's just a certain attitude that is not as conducive to what we're trying to do here, as being attentive in posture as well as in spirit and mind. So, given that, if you are sitting in a chair, if you can, sit forward a little bit until you can tilt far enough on the seat so that the front of your pelvis starts to drop a little bit so that you are arched and not leaning back against the back of the seat. If you can't do that, do the best that you can. Okay. As usual, our first prime consideration is to get the body into as relaxed a state as we can. In our ordinary lives, we ratchet up the tension in the body because it's a habit mostly. We have our cup of coffee in the morning, we wind up, we get wound up, and then we go and we start unwinding. Well, there is another way to look at it, and that would maybe be, I mean, you could do whatever your habits are, but maybe start with an unwinding. Start at a little lower level of, and look at what that does if you can do that. It changes your perspective quite a bit. It's if you gird your loins, so to speak, to take on the day as though it were a battle, it could well be. But if you go into the day just saying, here I am, by the grace of God, whatever comes down, I'm ready for it. We don't need to keep all the tension that we generally and just habitually enter a day with. These exercises give us a chance to look at lots of habits because we're going kind of in underneath our usual way of looking at things by establishing this idea of attention from the mind to the body to sensation, which is a very primal sense of who we are. Our identity actually arrives out of sensation. All the feelings I am are based on that. You can feel it in the solar plexus, heart, head, the various chakras that, of course, have all their different names. And sometimes you become sensitive enough to sensation so that you actually go, oh, I'm coming from this place. It takes some study. Okay. In our usual manner, we're going to visualize, and this is the only visualization we're using, and some light metaphor just to help with the picture, but we see our bodies as filled with something resembling a liquid. Right up to the top of the skull. And we begin the process by awakening to the existent sensations in the top of the head and the skull, the scalp. Maybe some warmth, temperature is a sensation. Maybe if there's a little air movement in the room, you can feel slight movement in the hair or movement of air across the forehead or anywhere else. Our concentration is on the top of the head for now, but you can reference other parts just to get into this idea. I feel a slight air movement around my chest and shoulders. Okay. We've established this sensation at the top of the skull. And as we do, we're going to start letting this drop as though in the bottom of the feet were open and there's just a seepage of this liquid out the tips of the fingers and the tips of the toes. Very slowly, we drop 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch. Maybe with each breath, depending on your cycle. See if you can get it aligned with my talking. And we move down just a little bit. Come into the forehead, on the front of the head. The back of the skull. In that area, there's not a lot of room for tension, but as we get down toward the eyebrows, we start working into the face muscles, and there are so many muscles on the face. And we can breathe into these as they come, the eyebrows, and let them relax. Let them move downward, sag, as muscles sag as we relax them. You can sense the top of the ears now. Move in toward the center of the eye. Can relax the upper lid. Can relax under the eyes, on the tops of the cheek muscles, going around to the tops of the ears. As we get toward the bottom of the ears, you can become aware of the jaw muscles, and oftentimes these are much tenser than we think. We hold a lot in our jaws. So just let them go. Let them fall away. Actually sense the relaxation. I'm speaking, so I need a little bit of tension just to keep things working. But those of you not speaking can let it all fall away. The upper lip can just totally relax. The jaw can hang. You can feel the muscles of the upper lip just go slack. And if you have your attention totally focused on this, notice whatever was going on before you started this is not going on. Attention is an incredible facet of mind. We've never really been taught thoroughly to work with it. Part of these exercises is that, learning to direct attention. Okay, we're down to the chin. The back of the neck would be just a little below the top of the spine. The throat, Adam's apple. Esophagus will start to feel down into the very top of the chest, the muscles across the collarbone, tops of the shoulders, the spine, the backs of the shoulders. We can pack a lot of tension into these areas. Just let them go. You can, if your hands are on your lap, you can let your hands drop to your sides and let the weight of the arms pull the shoulders down. This time we'll go down the arms as one. The upper arm muscles, biceps. The shoulder muscles, where they're in the arms. Down to the elbows. Forearm muscles. The hands. And I started to sense the weight of the arms, weight of the head, the neck. Go back and check the face again. You can almost just breathe the tension out, right through the skin. And I let whatever residue out through the tips of the fingers. And return my attention to the neck area, the top of the shoulders. And now, either including or excluding the arms, your choice. We start down the chest. Muscles in the back of the shoulders, across the top of the chest. Allowing the relaxation to move down with the breath. The lungs filling and emptying. The diaphragm containing all the organs. Sensing the right and left side, kidneys, liver, upper intestines, moving down the hips, sexual organs, thigh muscles, the backs of the thighs, the knees, shins, calves, ankles, heels, top of the foot, bottom of the foot, toes. Take a breath and allow the entire torso and legs to, the residues left in there, and let it all out through the tips of the toes. We could now say that we are in our body. There might be a thought arising here or there, but there's no attention. Thought cannot proceed without attention. We're just here. No thought. Maybe just the primal sensations. Before we took a name, or were given a name. This is what we were and what we are. It's very quiet. Very spacious. Room for whatever needs room. Time for whatever needs time. In this kind of place, there's really not much of a sense of time. It's all space. Okay. Further work with attention and sensation. Let's put the attention on the back of the head. Reestablish breath cycle. Okay, from the back of the head, top of the spine area, let's allow sensation to awaken. And we'll give it a boost by breathing in to the right arm. And becoming aware and attentive of all the sensation in and surrounding the right arm. And we'll add one breath where we'll send the feeling, I am, down that arm. Resting breath. Turn the attention, top of the spine, back of the head. Gather a breath. Send sensation And awareness down the right leg, filling that leg, allowing it to fill with the existent sensation. Nothing to imagine here, just allow the attention to move into what's there. And then with another breath, send the awareness, I am, into the leg. Bringing the attention back to the back of the head, top of the spine. Gathering it as much as you are able. Preparing to send energy, awareness, opening the sensation to the left leg. You'll feel phantom sensation, not phantom, but it's still in there. But we're just directing the attention to the other limbs. The other ones are still going to have that sensation. But the attention is on the one we're working on, which is the left leg. So it could feel stronger. And as you work with it, it definitely will. Okay, bringing the breath back up. Back of the head. I'm going to send a breath, a feeling, an awareness, sensation into that left leg of I am. Attention back to the top of the head, the back of the head, and the top of the spine. And opening up the sensation in the right arm will allow the attention to fill that arm. Again, sensation. Air on the outside moving around. The flow of blood. Temperature. Muscle twitches or twinges. All the things that the body does senses. Bringing the attention back to the top of the head, back of the neck. Allow the feeling I am to fill the right arm. And the attention now back to our starting point. Take a breath and fill the entire body with an awareness of the sensation in the body. As you work with these exercises, you familiarize yourself with this quietness, this state. The sensation is always with you. Awareness is always. In fact, we are kind of this thing projected onto the screen of awareness. So it's always there. So in small ways, to begin with, you can start bringing this state into your day, which is what meditation is all about. It's not like going to church on Sunday. It's trying to bring Sunday into all the days of your life. Then you have entered into your potentials, your possibilities, because in awareness lies every potential, every thing that we value in our lives: love, joy, happiness. Those things are always there, but we have the perception that something in us has made them go away, and actually it's not possible. It can't really be done. But it's the perception and the training that we've given ourselves in this life. And this is a way of turning that around and seeing from a completely different place. So I hope this has given something, and thank you so much.
so much, Bob.
My pleasure.
Something that I appreciate about these meditations is it gives me an opportunity to heighten my observation, my observer, and observing how much my mind, when not really paying attention, it goes backwards in time or it goes forwards in time. And then I would notice like, oh, my right jaw, I'm feeling tension around my C1 and 2, and oh yeah, I did 12 hours of power washing this weekend. And oh yeah, like then my body would want to unwind tension, and then I'd be like, wait, come back to the present moment. And then, a few minutes later, I'd notice my thoughts were on the next day or the day after, and number of projects that I have coming up. And then I'd have these moments of, oh, that's right, go back into the right leg, go down the right leg, breathe. So it's like this guided meditation for me is giving me that gentle invitation to keep coming back to the present moment. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. It's something that we really, we send our children to school, we go to school, we learn things. We have subjects. We're never taught about how we as a being work. We're never taught that the mind left alone is going to, it's almost as though we had a huge house like Downton Abbey, and somehow the butler ends up running the entire house.
Right.
Not the owners, not the master. The master's hardly ever present. And we've let the calculator, the computer, the computer mind, the body mind, let's put it that way. The mind is concerned, the body and the mind have this sort of partnership wherein the body is pretty much in charge in our ordinary everyday lives. The mind serves the body in that I've been power washing, I have this ache. Okay, well, don't particularly want that, so how do I shift that? So the power of attention by default goes to thought.
Rather than emotion, or rather than meaning of life, or
yeah, I mean,
life can be upper mental, but then life.
Yeah, the mind has this peculiar asset and deficit of deferring to, as you were saying, time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And time is just a concept of the mind.
Yes.
So here it is, the mind is creating everything, really. And if you wanted to take it far enough back, by the body is a mental construct also. I mean, when we dig way deep. So basically, all the ancient, if we can go, teachings, all of the teachings that have lasted thousands and thousands of years go back to putting these parts of ourselves in proper relationship, because it's gotten unbalanced in terms of the mind completely takes over, and then it gets so powerful that it creates, well, I mean, disease. It creates conflict. It creates unhappiness. It creates all of these things. And because we don't know anything else, we accept that. And we say, okay, now there is a problem, and I now have to solve this problem. But actually, if you go back to the roots of the arising of this problem, and you have a quiet place to see it from, which is your own bottom line being, we could call it, then you can see that where it arises from. And it arises from thought. These things are all in Java, they have shadow puppets, and they do these shadow puppet shows. And they have a piece of cloth, and then they have these kind of flat puppets, but they move, behind the cloth. And so it's our thoughts that are like these shadow puppets. They're just seemingly there. A thought is not sentient, it's not alive. We see them that way. It's like panic, fear,
One of my teachers states that thoughts are really more like we're not the originator of thought, we're the receiver of thought. And it matters where we put, it's like tuning our radio frequency to a certain frequency, and that allows thought to come in. And part of the purpose of thought is to bind energy.
Which it does very, very thoroughly. And the thinker is also a thought.
The thought about the thinker.
It's all arising from thought. And we can go, it's very deep stuff. And there's a lot of subtlety in there when we start moving down into this realm, which very few people do. We look at the surface. Okay, this is by no means denigrating or anything, but we look, yoga, for instance, is a yoga is a spiritual path, or it has been in the past. It's changing in this country now to more of a physical exercise kind of thing, and which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but in essence, it was the various types of yoga were and are about this very thing we're talking about. A kind of training mind and body to their, you could say, proper positions in our existence. And there are many, many ways of seeing and putting to use those kind of teachings, learnings, and yeah, you can take them as deep as you like. Mostly, we, even with the New Age, it's pretty superficial. I mean, we go on with our lives, and so we treat we go to, maybe we like workshops, so we go to a workshop and, I feel better now, and then we move back into life, and then before we know it, life has taken back over, all the effects of the workshop are gone. What happened, gee, I spent all that money, but well, I'll go back because it was really good, it felt good, and we kind of don't get that the idea of the workshop in whatever it was is to take that into our lives and make it a part.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's of no value, But the mind has, it says, well, I know that was okay, it felt good, that's fine, but this is more important. I've got to solve this problem, I got to do this, I got to do this. You go back to the Bible, which I think of every once in a while because I was raised with it, but in there it says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all things will be added unto you. Well, this that we just experienced is a step closer to that kingdom of heaven, that stillness, that peace, that emptiness that we really are, that we've piled all of this other stuff on top of and lost track. There are some wonderful stories. There's this story of the pearl of great price. I don't know if you know that story or not. But I mean, there's many, many, many stories that, the prodigal son, left his home, went out into the world, thought that he'd lost everything, came back and his father loved him and welcomed him home into his, So we're always welcome home. Home has never left us. It's never left us. But the mind is pretty much fixed on fixing the idea of who we think we are. So the mind, which is a thought, is trying to fix a thought about who we think we are. What's going to happen? More thinking. I mean, you just haven't gotten away from that matrix. So what's necessary is to go to what this whole schematic we call ourselves is based on, and really become aware of that bottom. And there's lots of language that describes that. There's many teachings that move in that direction, some a little more quickly than others, depending. The mind will say, as you start into this kind of a thing, well, I can go this far, but I don't want to go over there because that's a little scary. Well, when you hear scary, you can go, but I'd really like to look. Just a little farther, maybe I can peek a little farther into that. Oh, it's like the little kid with something in the closet or a dragon under the bed. When you look, when you lift the covers and you look under there, there's nothing there.
Right. Fear,
It's
false evidence, very real.
Very good. Absolutely, yeah. And so the thing is that since we've never looked even, the mind has very much set up this whole little, don't look behind the curtain, don't look behind the curtain.
Stabilizing, comfort-driven force.
Exactly, yeah. So with this kind of thing, these exercises, we can peel back the curtain. And we can become more and more, it's not really courage, but it is a wish to know, to truly know what and how things are. And it's what we're here for. That's this whole game of life is, and all of the things that are put in front of us to fall victim to or overcome, are there giving us a clue all the time. This pandemic is giving us a clue. And you can see it all over social media, people are saying, you can see it moving in a direction that it's never moved before. It's like even people are saying now, no, there was no normal. Let's not go back. Let's move forward. That wasn't normal, that was totally abnormal. In fact, let's drop the idea of normal. There never was, It's something the statisticians use to measure against. But it's nothing, in the last 50 years we've accepted so much that 50 years ago was not normal.
Right. The difference between common and normal and ideal.
Yeah, my teacher used to use the word average.
Right, average.
Yeah.
Status quo.
Yeah, status quo. Yeah.
So if there was and this, I don't mean to oversimplify, but if there was a desire or objective or multiple different objectives of meditation, is it to be, in part, able to be present with and acknowledge all the different facets of beingness, from peeling back the curtain and looking at fear and being willing to be with it, and then to also, not scold the mind, but be aware of the mind, and then perhaps also move to a place of greater vision so it's pre-rational, rational, and post-rational, all-inclusive? Is that part of the point?
That's exactly where it's headed. One of the basic concepts is that as a human being, and we all experience this somewhere along in our lives, we are taught, whether, and sometimes it doesn't stick, and sometimes we don't take it. Every rebellious teenager is moving away from what the culture has tried to pin down on him. And what we have lost sight of is that we are not just a body. Consciousness, which is everything, we are that. So there is no limitation. There is no limitation. The limitation we have through culture, training, etc., built this picture of who we are based on what the culture, our elders, the world has laid on us. You do this, you're born, you go to nursery school, you go to grade school, you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job, you get married, whatever, it's all these things, and we kind of move through this list. And there's nothing wrong with the list. What's wrong is how we see it and take it on. There are a lot of, it's the whole world, so, it's not that there is a conflict between consciousness and the world particularly. It's that consciousness has created this world, and it is, you can call it a game. You can call it a theater, wherein this huge play of life is going on, as Shakespeare described it. And if you see it, that all the things that are presented personally, and a lot of it seems and really bad. A lot of, people, and, from the point of view of the world, it is. This pandemic, there are a lot of there's a lot of consciousness being transformed out of physical bodies back into the totality, out of identities back into the totality, and we have loved some of those very much. Some have been very close to us, and because of the idea that we think that we are these separate entities, and that when one separate entity goes, that spirit is gone, can be seen differently. There is another perspective where essentially a gust came along and a pile of, this is oversimplifying, but just, a little dust eddy came along, a little energy, we saw some things flying around it, and that's gone. But the spirit of it, the movement, the energy, the life, it doesn't go anywhere. It's always here. And it would be so much easier for us to be able to live without this idea of loss and gain, because pretty much there is this stable, unmoving, joyous, graceful, in all the words, that exists constantly. And the imagined beings that we take ourselves to be in the world are totally unstable. They go from one feeling just like all over the place, and don't have a center, generally speaking. Not much of one. That's all available. It's all available. And these kind of practices can lead us toward that. And again, there's no, this is I was going to say, beyond Unitarian. All of those teachings, way past that. Nothing to do with those things. And we've had a taste of it in the last 50 years. I mean, since I started investigating these kind of things. I mean, there are meditations, practices, systems of getting to these, to wholeness, oneness, to awakening, or whatever you want to call it, that were hidden for centuries and centuries and centuries as being beyond the comprehension of everyday people, you know. So you had to go through all this incredible process of, you know, going to the east or going to the west, or, you know, making great journeys and treks and pilgrimages and all these things. And yeah, right. And it's all beautiful stuff, you know. And I thrived on it as a young man. You know, I was willing to go anywhere until I finally found out that I didn't have to go anywhere. I'm already there. You know, it's all available from wherever you are, because you are it. You know, and once that penetrates to a certain point, you can settle down and start to really work with things that will change your viewpoint. Thanks, Dawn. Those were great lead-ins.
That was fun.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I look forward to the next time.
All right.